Welcome back. I am Kaikasi VS, Assistant Professor of English, University College Trivandrum. Here we are in the third part of our lecture series, and in the previous videos we have actually discussed the concept of Indian aesthetics and introduced you to the concept of Rasa, and here we will see how Rasa is evoked in a Sahridaya during a performance or when reading a poem or watching a painting, in short watching art in general. Now, in the previous videos I have actually told you that when you are watching a performance, something transforms within you. You actually start empathizing with the characters, you actually have emotions for the characters, though you know that these are not taking place in the real sense of the term. It is not happening in front of you. You know that it is not real, but still you can feel and internalize the emotions that are being enacted. And this is a process which is unique to only human beings, because we are born with certain emotions. Now, Bharata in his Natyashastra talks about this as Rasa, and he tells there are certain conditions for Rasa to be evoked in a human being. There are certain conditions, there are certain rules for this to be happening. So, when you cry, when your hero is crying, you think that it is a natural process. No, he tells it is not a natural process, because there is something which changes within you, and that change is represented through a Rasa Sutra. I will read the Rasa Sutra for you. This is what Bharata talks about as Rasa. Vibhava anubhava vyabhichari samyogat rasa nishpattihi. I will repeat. Vibhava anubhava vyabhichari samyogat rasa nishpattihi. In other words, vibhavangalum, anubhavangalum, vyabhichari bhavangalum ഒന്നിച്ച് സമ്മേളിക്കുമ്പോൾ അവിടെ രസമുണ്ടാകുന്നു. രസനിഷ്പത്തിഹി, അവിടെ രസമുണ്ടാക്കപ്പെടുന്നു. Which means when these things are conjoined in the right formula, when these things are blended together in the right form of a mixture, Rasa is naturally born. Now, we have this very famous movie clip where Srinivasan is encountered with the question of Rasam enganeyanu undagunathu, and he gives a very interesting answer, because he couldn't relate what is Rasa and what is the Rasam that Malayalis always relish as part of their midday meals. So, he tells Rasam undakkapedunnathanallo ennu parnittu he actually gives a recipe of Rasam. In fact, we all laughed with that scene, but in reality that is also one way of mixing up things. When all the condiments, all the spices are mixed in the right form and in the right proportion, you have that aromatic smell coming, and that we call it as Rasam. In the same manner, when everything is blended together in the proper combination, Rasa is automatically born. That is the significance of this statement. Vibhava anubhava vyabhichari samyogat Rasa nishpattihi. The proper mixture of vibhavas, anubhavas and vyabhichari bhavas results in the formation of Rasa. Now, we will see what is vibhava, what is anubhava, and what is vyabhichari bhava in the next part of this video. In fact, before that we must know what is the concept of sthayi bhava. Now, unless you understand what is sthayi bhava, you may not be able to understand what is the significance of this Rasa Sutra. Rasa Sutra is an aphorism. In English we have aphorisms. So, this is a maxim which you have to learn by heart, because this is the quintessential part of the entire literary tradition upon which we have all these literary works being made, dances being performed, all forms of art forms being performed. So, that is it. Okay. So, vibhava anubhava vyabhichari samyogat rasa nishpattihi. Now, we are used to splitting it into pieces. That is why we say vibhava, anubhava, vyabhichari bhava and so on. Since it is an aphorism, you must be able to speak it as vibhava anubhava vyabhichari samyogat rasa nishpattihi. That is the way you should be rendering an aphorism. So, coming back to our Rasa Sutra, we discussed that it is a combination of vibhavas, anubhavas and vyabhichari bhavas, and something happens and rasa is produced. In fact, Bharata tells to produce rasa, you need to have a transformative effect on the person who is going through that phase. And when the person is going through that phase, his sthayi bhava changes to rasa. This is what he tells. When a person goes through a blend of these three things, what are the three things? I will repeat again: vibhavas, anubhavas and vyabhichari bhavas. The person undergoes a transformation, and in that process, the person's sthayi bhava changes to rasa. And let us see what is a sthayi bhava. Now, you know that we are born with certain emotions. For instance, when you are born, after a few years, you start loving persons, people. You love your mother, you love your father, you love your siblings, you love your friends. Later on in a stage, you start loving your lover, you start loving your husband, you start loving your children, you start loving your grandchildren, you start loving everybody. And from where is that emotion born? It is not born from anywhere else, you are born with that emotion. Another emotion is the innate tendency of human beings to be sad when they see something tragic happening. Nobody actually asked you to cry. You cry because you are emotionally disturbed. Babies cry for various reasons. I am not talking about that. I am talking about those tears that are shed when you are really in distress. When you are going through an emotional turmoil, the tears roll out naturally. That is basically because you are born with the sthayi bhava of sadness. You are born with that. Nobody actually tutored you to cry. Or just look at all the emotions that you go through. You are energetic by nature. You have that valor in you. Maybe you are not fighting a battle every day, but each of us have got this tendency to fight. Maybe it is for survival. Maybe when the situation demands. Because you are born with that sthayi bhava of energy. When you see something very scary, you are so scared. People say that I am not born, I have not experienced what is called fear or terror. No. And terror is not the kind of terror that you feel when you are watching a horror movie or when you actually see a ghost in front of you. It's not that what I mean. That is because we have an innate tendency to be scared because we are born with that emotion. And these emotions are called sthayi bhavas. They are the latent content in every human being with which we are born. We are born with these emotions. We are born with these sthayi bhavas. That is why it is called sthayi bhava. And what is sthayi? Sthayi means it is fixed. It is fixed in every human being. Maybe it varies in different degree in different human beings. For some people, love will be the dominant emotion. For some people, Ulsaha will be the dominant emotion. But anyway, everybody is born with these sthayi bhavas. And Bharata tells, when the environment is conducive, what happens is, these sthayi bhavas will transform itself into rasas. So, I understood, sthayi bhava is the latent content and rasa is the manifest content. Your sthayi bhavas are they are latent. They are like the dormant volcanoes. They will explode only when the situations are conducive, the situations are favorable. Only then sthayi bhavas will change to rasa. Otherwise, sthayi bhavas are something with which we are born, but you can't express it all the time. Imagine you are born with love. Does that mean that you are expressing it all the time? Or just think of an emotion like hasam, which means the innate tendency to laugh. Does that mean that you are laughing all the time? No. When you see a movie scene where appropriate comic content is being displayed, you start laughing. That is because the laughing part is the manifest of a sthayi bhava. Your sthayi bhava is your tendency, but when you see a comic strip or when you watch something comic, you start laughing. That is the manifest form of a sthayi bhava. അപ്പോൾ നിങ്ങളൊരു തമാശ രംഗം കണ്ട് ചിരിക്കപ്പെടുന്നത് അല്ലേ, അതിനെയാണ് നമ്മൾ രസ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. നമ്മുടെ എല്ലാവരുടെയും ഉള്ളിൽ ചിരിക്കണം എന്നുള്ള ടെൻഡൻസി ഉണ്ട്. എന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ നമ്മൾ രാവിലെ തൊട്ട് വൈകിട്ട് വരെ ചിരിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയല്ല. In fact, when the situation is favorable, you start laughing, and that is rasa. So I hope that is very clear to you. So sthayi bhavas are the latent content and the manifest form is the rasas. To put it in very beautiful terms, sthayi bhava is like the cloud that is filled with water, and the process of a rain is rasa. Now you might have seen the multicolored umbrellas. When it is kept folded, it is sthayi bhava, and when the time comes, you open it, you unfold it, you have all the colors just falling in the right place. It's a beautiful sight. That is rasa. In other words, you have sthayi bhava is the noun and rasa is the adjective. So one is the latent content and the other is the manifest content. Now let us see what are the sthayi bhavas with which we are born. We have rati is a sthayi bhava. Hasa is a sthayi bhava. Rati, love. Hasa, the innate tendency to laugh. Then shoga is a sthayi bhava. Shoga, the tendency to feel sorry, the tendency to feel sorrow, that is shoga. Then krodha is a sthayi bhava. Krodha, anger is a sthayi bhava. People say that I am not born with that. I am basically a very passive person because I am not born with that feeling. Wrong. You are also born with the sthayi bhava called krodha, but due to circumstances, due to the power of civilizing effect on you, maybe you have changed for the better and you don't show anger to anybody. That's a fine quality, but you are born with krodha. Then you are born with bhaya. Bhaya is the innate tendency to be scared. It's a natural thing. So rati, hasa, shoga, bhaya, krodha, utsaha. Utsaha is a sthayi bhava. What is utsaha? The innate tendency of human beings to be always ready. When you hear that you have to study something, you are ready. Now people always equate utsaha to going to battles and so on, because we are so used to these kind of emotions being displayed in war movies and so on. No, utsaha is the tendency of every human being to do things when the time demands. It may be as a very insignificant thing as taking your mother to the hospital. Even that demands a sense of utsaha. Utsaha is that valor, that tendency to be brave. Then Vismaya. Vismaya is the tendency to be astonished. When you see something of extraordinary proportions, when you see Taj Mahal for the first time, the feeling that you have is Vismaya. It's wonder, amazement. You are born with that. Then Jugupsa. Jugupsa is that feeling, is actually a sthayi bhava. Jugupsa is the feeling called disgust. You see a dead body on the street filled with vermin, filled with maggots. That feeling, you don't want to look at it. You have that very aversion towards it. That is jugupsa. You are born with jugupsa. So rati, hasa, shoga, krodha, utsaha, bhaya and jugupsa and vismaya. These 8 sthayi bhavas are with which you are born. You are born with these sthayi bhavas. And what happens to these sthayi bhavas when the time is favorable? When the time is favorable, rati changes to sringara. So you are born with rati, but when the time is ready, when the situation is ready, your rati changes to sringara. Imagine that you are going to watch a play like Romeo and Juliet. You are already born with the emotion, or you are already born with the emotion called sringara. You already have, you are born with the emotion called rati. You have that latent content called rati within you. So it doesn't mean that you are in love all the time. So you are going to watch this play called Romeo and Juliet, and you have Romeo being shown in the first act, Juliet being introduced in the second act and so on, but you don't have any emotions. But suddenly you have these two pairs coming together and suddenly they confess their love for each other. And what happens to the latent content of rati within you? It transforms to sringara. This is called, this is what happens inside a person when they are watching. They are born with Rati, but that doesn't mean that they are expressing Rati all the time. But what happens when the time is conducive, when they are watching the pair on the stage, their Rati changes to Sringara, their Hasa changes to Hasya, their Shoga changes to Karuna. You are born with Karuna, but when the time comes, you start have tears for the character who is actually enacting the role. You have the very famous poem by Kumaranashan called Karuna. Now there, when you are reading that poem, you have the same emotion that Ubagupta felt for Vasavadatta. So when you find that she is finally in the crematorium with blisters all around, and you find her crying, your Shoka changes to Karuna. So that is the transformation. So one is latent, the other is the manifest form. We will just look at all the Sthayi Bhavas and their corresponding rasas. Rati changes to Sringara, Hasa changes to Hasyam, Shoka changes to Karunam, Krodha becomes Raudram. Krodha is a very milder version, okay, it is which you are born with. But Raudram is that emotion that you feel when you are very, very angry. In Kathakali performances, when Bhima see Kijaga for the first time, Bhima is full of Raudra. Raudra means intense, what you call, anger towards the villain, okay, or villain, or the antagonist, you can call it like that. So you have, that is called Krodha, it becomes Krodha. Then you have Utsaha. Utsaha is with which we are born with, it is a Sthayi Bhava, but Utsaha changes to Veeram. Utsaha becomes Veeram, and Veeram is a very elevated quality. It is a quality that you associate with kings and all those people, because when the time demands, you have to be ready, Veeram. Then Bhaya. Bhaya becomes Bhayanagam. Bhayanagam. Now you must have seen artists performing all this with their faces. Bhaya becomes Bhayanagam, and Jugupsa becomes Bhibalsa. Bhibalsa. Jugupsa becomes Bhibalsa, and Vismaya becomes Adbhuda. So that is it. Radi, Hasa, Shoka, Krodha, Utsaha, Bhaya, Jugupsa, Vismaya, all these gets correspondingly transported to Sringara, Hasya, Karuna, Raudra, Veera, Bhayanaga, Bhibalsa and Albudha. You must have noticed that there are only 8 of them. Bharata does not talk about the 9th rasa. And you know that in Kathakali or in dance forms, you always hear the term Navarasas. India is known for Navarasas. You always associate Indian aesthetics with Navarasas. From where does this 9th rasa comes? The 9th rasa was added later on by later theoreticians. Bharata does not talk about that. That is why you have this very famous sloka where he talks about the 8 essential Sthayi Bhavas. It goes something like this: Redir Hasascha, Shokascha, Krodotsaho Bhayam Dhata, Jugupsa Vismayschadi, Ashtau Natye Rasa Smrita. Ashtau stands for 8. Bharata talks about only 8 emotions. I will just repeat it: Redir Hasascha, Shokascha, Krodotsaho Bhayam Dhata, Jugupsa Vismayschadi, Ashtau Natye Rasa Smrita. 8. There are 8 Sthayi Bhavas which go for the corresponding 8 rasas. This is how Bharata concludes his concept of rasa. So Bharata talks about only 8 Sthayi Bhavas and their corresponding 8 rasas. But later on, people started asking questions like, why can't we have a rasa, the 9th rasa, which is Shaanda Rasa? And Shaanda Rasa stands for no emotions at all. It is a emotion of what you can call tranquility, absolute peace. So Bharata did not believe in that. He believed that when there is no emotions, how can it be a rasa? And therefore he did not include that in his Rasa Sutra. But later theoreticians, they added Shanta as a 9th rasa, and the Sthayi Bhava for Shanta is Nirveda. Nirveda is the lack of emotions. At the height of all emotions, you have Nirveda. That is why you have the term Redi Nirveda. The height of sexual pleasure is Nirveda, from where you don't feel anything. So they said that we must have 9th rasa also. Therefore Nirveda became the Sthayi Bhava and Shaanda Rasa became the subsequent rasa that is being produced. Many have argued that some other emotions should also be added as a rasa, like Valsalya, because Valsalya can't be included in Radi. കാരണം ഇപ്പോൾ അമ്മയ്ക്ക് മകനോട് തോന്നുന്ന ആ ഇമോഷനെ നമുക്ക് രതി എന്ന് പറയാൻ പറ്റില്ല, അല്ലെ അച്ഛന് മകളോട് തോന്നുന്ന സ്നേഹം, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു ടീച്ചറിന് സ്റ്റുഡൻസിനോട് തോന്നുന്ന സ്നേഹത്തിനെ നമുക്കൊരിക്കലും രതി എന്ന് പറയാൻ പറ്റില്ല. Therefore people said, where can we fit in Valsalya? So Valsalya should be a rasa എന്നൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞ ആൾക്കാരുണ്ട്. ഭക്തി എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഒരു രസമാക്കണമെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ ആൾക്കാരുണ്ട്. But there are different arguments, and arguments always vary. You have only 9 rasas, and 9 rasas constitute all the mudras and all the emotive expressions used in dance forms and performance. So rasa arises in an individual when the perception of vibhavas, anubhavas and vyabhichari bhavas are blended in the right position. Now we go back to our Rasa Sutra. So just remember that we have discussed Sthayi Bhavas, and now we are going to see what happens to the Sthayi Bhavas when the time is right. Now we are talking about what makes the time right and when is it going to happen. Now be very excited to know that I am born with certain Sthayi Bhavas. When are these Sthayi Bhavas going to transform themselves as rasas? So I am talking about that.